waking up.
All right, folks. Well, today's a troubleshooting day. If you didn't watch the very last crabbing video, at the end of the video, I had mentioned that I was having engine issues. Towards the end of the day, we were only able to go about 10 to 15 miles an hour tops at full wide open throttle, leaving me to believe that we had some sort of an issue with the prop. Or just the engine as a whole. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of troubleshooting scenarios. I'm going to go through spark plugs, spark, props. I'm checking pretty much everything in this troubleshooting situation in hopes that if I do find the final issue, that it'll help somebody who's in the same situation where they can only go a top speed of 10 miles an hour running at 2,500 to 3,000 RPMs. We've had more weight than this before. Wonder why it's so slow.
That's a lot of weight. I mean, we just empty the chicken.
I don't know. This is like having 3 more people on the boat. And we still got faster than this. Try to go that way. I was just curious. If I can go fast this way, then yeah, it's just the weight. Yeah, something else wrong. I have to check it out when I get home. Sunday. I think it's spark plugs or something. One of the cylinders aren't firing. Yeah. Yeah. That's not enough power. That's crazy. The condition would be described as a slow, well, I want to say a slow drive, where I can get to about 5-10 miles an hour, hoping to be able to get onto plane, but the moment I push it into full throttle, then all of a sudden it seems like it would rear back just a little bit and never get onto plane, even though I'm at wide open throttle. And it sounds like the engine was starting to slow down just a bit as well, which meant the RPMs were going down quite dramatically. But it was able to maintain and sustain a nice RPM. It just would never go faster than that, which led me again to believe a few things. We did tangle the trap ropes initially, which I thought could have caused the potential spun hub but I just checked everything and it did not look like that is the case. So I'm going to move to the next step now and go through a bunch of scenarios. Like I said, we'll go through the spark plugs, electricals. We're going to do a compression check. Absolutely, we'll do that. And yeah, so we're just going to step through things, and hopefully I find the problem and I can share whatever it is that I find with you guys. So stay tuned. Well, one of the most frustrating things about being a boat owner is having to deal with issues, especially a DIY boat owner, where you're having to troubleshoot these things on your own and not relying on a mechanic. I have the know-how to kind of look and research and fix my own things. I mean, I rebuilt pretty much this whole engine on my own. So I have a pretty good idea of what this thing can and can't do, or what condition this engine was in when I first bought the boat back in 2020. So last outing we had a prop foul with a crab trap rope, so I have some possibilities. I have 3 possibilities. I think it may be a spun hub, so we'll check that out. We'll pull the prop, make sure that nothing is fouled up there, and then we have the spark plugs to check out, all 6 of them. And if that doesn't work out, then we'll do a compression test on the cylinders. So we're going to eliminate those 3 things, and let's hope we find something. Be right back. It's pretty healthy to me. So I'm going to say that is not the issue. Yeah, I'm going to rule out a spun prop or a spun hub is the culprit here. Everything looks to be good. There's no signs of rubber being fouled, burnt, coming off. Everything looked pretty clean. And then the splines looked healthy. That looks pretty clean and healthy. Nothing looks chopped up or grounded down. So I don't think this is it, guys. All right, as we go through the process of troubleshooting the issue where we're only able to go 10 miles an hour top speed, we've already eliminated the spun prop or the spun hub as the culprit. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check for 3 other possibilities. We're going to check spark. And if we have an issue with spark, then we can assume the stator or even the power pack could be defective. The next thing we'll do is we'll check all 6 of the spark plugs to make sure that they're not fouled up. This is a 2-stroke motor, so if we're running rich, then there's a possibility that we're fouling our spark plugs, and I have a few on standby ready to go to replace that. The next and very last thing we're going to do is check fuel delivery. We're going to pull the air intakes off of the carburetors. We'll take a visual inspection to make sure that we can see the fuel spitting into the carburetors as they should be for all 6 of them. And then if that's happening, then we can eliminate some of those things. So we'll take the cowling off the main engine. We're going to eliminate those 3 things one at a time, and let's see what we can find out about this engine. Okay, so now that we've taken the cowling off the boat, we're going to be able to perform our spark test. And in order to do that, you're going to need some inline spark testers. Now, you can get 2 of these on Amazon for $10, but because time is of essence, I went ahead and picked up 6 of them. That way we can do all 6 cylinders at one time, and we can determine which one of these cylinders are problematic, or maybe not. If we have spark, these will light up. If they do not have spark, then they won't light up. But that will help us at least eliminate whether it's the cable that may be an issue on a cylinder, or even the stator and the power pack. Let's do some elimination. All right, now to get to these, we're gonna have to pull off these cables. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll place them with these. That's 1. That's 2. Hopefully I've got enough room down here. The 3rd one. And then we simply put them back. Just like that. Just like that. And the last one, just like that. All right, we'll go ahead and do the same for the other side. Pop these off. You got to remember where the cables go, but it's pretty easy to determine that because it's 1 to the lower middle to the middle, top to the top. So again, we'll replace them with this. Inline, that's why they call them inline, is because it literally goes inline. Make sure it's nice and snug. And then one at a time, we'll plug it in. And then we'll plug the last one in. All right, and that's really all there is to it. All right, so now that I've done the dirty work of installing all 6 of these inline testers, as you can see, we're gonna put the muffs on the boat, run the water, and we're gonna start the engine. And I'm hoping to see 6 healthy cylinders that are lighting up like it's Christmas. Let's go find out if that's true. If it's not, my frown is gonna turn upside down. Actually, how does that work? No, turn your front, never mind. All right, guys, well, here we go. That it's loud. However, I'm going to go through every single one of these plugs to see if they're lighting up. That looks good. 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 Yeah, we have some spark. That isn't the issue. The status good. Everything checks out there. We're gonna go to the next step. Now that we have spark on all of the 6 cylinders, that gives me comfort in knowing that it's not the stator or even the power pack. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a check to make sure that we have fuel being delivered to all 6 cylinders. Now I should have taken the air filters off the carburetor at the time that I had the engine running, but I'm going to do that now. We'll do that verification before we move to the next step, which is the compression test. And also we're going to work on checking to make sure that the plugs themselves are not fouled up, so stay tuned. I'm going to take the air box off the front of the carburetors. And so in order to do that, I've got one of these off already. Then I'll go ahead and remove this one. And we should be able to take these bolts, twist them straight off. We're going to remove that additional cable, and then it should just pop right off. There we go. And now we have access to do a visual inspection on the intakes of all of our carbs. I'm going to start the engine again with the air box off, and we're going to verify we have fuel delivery. I don't think we have a fuel delivery issue, but I'm going to verify anyway because the engine started just fine, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that you don't have one cylinder that isn't getting fuel. So we're going to check to make sure all 6 do. All right, so we put the controls in neutral, wide open throttle, because again, we're having wide open throttle issues. I want to make sure that in wide open throttle that all of the carbs are perfectly parallel open. And it does look like that is the case. So a link and sync is not necessary. See how everything's open perfectly in parallel, or vertical in this case. So we don't have an issue with linking sync. I'm eliminating everything. So we got fuel delivery. Linking isn't an issue. We're going to go into the intake to find out if I can put the throttle all the way forward and then everything is parallel. And if it is, then we don't have any problems with our throttle itself not being able to get to wide open throttle. So I'm going to pop up this air filter again. I don't know why I didn't do that before I put it back on, but I wasn't thinking. So I'm going to run to the helm. Okay, we got that on wide open throttle. And we're going to take a look at the carbs to see if they're perfectly open. Gotta check all of them. They look open to me, guys. I don't think that's it. All right, here I go. I'm going to start the engine up, and they're going to run over to the carburetors. Well, that's actually going to be a harder test than I thought, because in order to get fuel to spit and visualize it, I'm going to have to go on high RPMs, and I'm not going to be able to do that with the boat out of the water. So I'm going to have to assume fuel delivery isn't an issue, and I'm going to go straight into the compression test. We're going to do our compression test, and then while we're doing the compression test, we have to remove the spark plugs anyway. So we're going to inspect the spark plugs at the exact same time. So the compression test kit you can get on Amazon. Again, it's really cheap. It's anywhere from $14 to $20, probably not even that. But here's the one that I have. So it's a simple tool. You got a compression gauge, analog, and then we'll plug that up to each one of these cylinders, and we're going to get a reading. And the cylinders should read anywhere from 5 to 10% difference, no more than that. If we have more than a 10% difference on each cylinder, then we have a problem. And let's hope that that's not the case. Oh, this plug looks actually pretty good. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to pull them off and then we'll inspect them all. I'm going to replace them anyway. But yeah, so this looks good. I don't know if you can see it or not. I assume all of them should look like this until I pull them and look. So now is a good practice when you're removing your plugs. That way you know exactly where the plugs came from and which cylinder. Let me show you my little trick. So as an example, if I'm pulling the plug off of here, then I'm going to call that the top left, and I'll just put a black marker, in this case a red marker, and just call it TL. We'll call it LM for L middle, LB for L bottom or left bottom, and then we'll do the repeat. Right, right, right middle, right bottoms. And that way we're inspecting each one of these. You can keep track of what cylinder was having either the rich or the lean condition, and you can adjust your carbs if needed, but that's what I like to do. So now is our opportunity to inspect the spark plugs while I have them out before we do the compression test. So let's take a look. Now this set just is marked top right, right middle, right bottoms. As we take a look, So then we're going to repeat the same process for the left cylinders. All right, and as marked, top left, left middle, left bottom. So we'll do the same visual inspection. We're looking for the same extra carbon buildup or wet, dark carbon. All right, this is a straight up mystery. My specifications say that my gapping should be 30, but I am halfway to the 40 on all plugs, and I do not know why. I even have footage of my last gapping, and I know it was not set this much. I wonder if that's why I'm losing power, and it could very well be, but the question then becomes why or how did my plug gapping get jacked up? It should have been 30. Yeah, I know I'm not losing my mind. I got the gapping specs directly from my engine. Look at this. I mean, it even says it. The actual plug plus the gap, 0.30. So why in the world are all my gaps well past that? I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard of a situation where the gapping would go off like that. That is weird. I mean, that would certainly cause the issue that I'm having if you have improper gapping. But dang, I got gremlins in my engine. What the heck? All right, to perform the compression test, all the plugs have to be out. The engine needs to be warm. And then I'm plugging this in the top left cylinder and then making sure that the air is released. We'll start the engine, come back. We'll crank it a few times, or at least 4 or 5 times to let that rotate. And then it should stop at a number, and we're going to record every single one of these cylinders and then see how far we're off. Be right back. I can't do this one-handed, so I'll be right back. All right, so I'm doing this test solely by myself, so I'm going to have to let this run. We'll let that crank 3 or 4 times. And we'll take a look at a reading. Let's check this out. 75, 80, 85, 86, 87. I'm going to say that's about right. 80, 85, 86-ish. So that's pretty in line. 75, 80, 85. So I believe they're all within specifications, definitely between 5 and 10%. So top right cylinder, I'm going to call that 90. Top 5 cylinder, 90. Okay, right middle cylinder is reading 92-ish. Okay, right bottom cylinder, 85, 86. Remember, we need about 5 or 10% difference between all cylinders. Or at least, yeah, I'll go back and look at the numbers and then I'll figure it out. That's 75, 80, 85, 86-ish. Bottom cylinder. All right, well, with the compression checked out good, we're going to go ahead and replace the spark plugs, and we're going to regap them for the 0.30 that they're supposed to be. I don't know why my spark plugs were gapped it way beyond that, but I'm going to install the new ones anyway since I have the old ones out. The old ones were fine, aside from the gapping themselves were a bit larger than I expected. I'm going to regap the new ones. We'll put them back in and install that, and I think we can rule out the spark. We can rule out the plugs themselves, aside from the gap, which I think also could contribute to some of this. I don't know, but we're going to get everything back to the correct spec. All right, so we're putting the plugs to the correct gap this time. There we have it, 30. That's what we want. I'm setting all of them like that, and I'm installing all of them. My gaps were off is the only thing that I saw. I am going to go out on a limb and say mysteriously my gapping went off, causing me to have the issue that I'm having. But again, speculation. I'm only keeping that on standby. I still believe it could possibly be the prop. It's a really, really old prop. All right, well, here's kind of an update of where we are on the last week's troubleshooting of our inability to go faster than 10 miles an hour. So during last week's session, we had checked the stator, the power pack, and then doing that meant that we had to check the spark, and that's fine. We checked the compression, and that's well under 5%. Range between each other, maximum is 10, so we're good there. We check the controls themselves to make sure that when we're punching it into full throttle that we have the butterflies are perfectly open and in line, so there's no constriction with airflow, as well as the possibility of a link and sync issue. So we ruled all that out. That leaves me to believe that the hub itself could be the potential, so I took this opportunity to upgrade the existing prop to a 4-blade 18 pitch 15 1/4 diameter to give us a little bit better out of the hole, to lift the transom up, to give us a little bit more power, and then to give us enough boost to be able to get up off onto plane. So it is an upgrade. It also allows us to replace the hub much, much better and much faster should we ever have a real condition where we have a spun hub situation, and it costs us $50 instead of the $200 that it's going to cost to replace the old style hubs that I have. So that's kind of where we're at. Well, I kind of have some bad news. I don't think I got the correct part. Unfortunately, this plating is incorrect. This is the one that came with it, and it fits perfectly flush as it should, leaving us no gaps. But the new one, when I install it, leaves us a 1-inch gap. I don't think that's right. I need to get that new part. So it does not look like we're gonna have a sea trial this weekend. Dang. Oh man, I'm so disappointed. All right, so I just got home from West Marine. Here we go, about to give it a shot. We're gonna test it. Let's see what happens. Does it fit flush? Sweet, works. Yeah, buddy. This one works. Hell yeah. Yep. We got a winner. So tomorrow morning I'll finalize it, but yeah, that's the working thrust washer right there. Hell yeah. All right, so we're gonna remove this old grease. Okay, what I like to do is put some marine grease or new marine grease just to kind of protect the new installation. So that's what we do. All right, so prior to installing the new prop, I like to add this marine grease under the prop shaft. That way protect the shaft. That's it. And I finally have the new thrust washer, the one that's fitting for this model. Just slide that in there. It goes all the way back as it should. All right, so here's my new prop. Here's my new hub. You just slide it in there. Give it a good push. And then there we go. Alright, then we slide the prop cap, make sure it's nice and snug, and then we'll put the bolt on. So here's the bolt. And we're going to tighten this down to 120 foot torque according to the manufacturer's specifications for the Johnson. I have a torque wrench, but for now I'm going to go ahead and tighten it, and I'm not going to torque it on camera. But I'll torque it down to 120 foot-pounds with these nuts. I think it's a lot lighter if you're using a castle nut, but specifications say if you're using this bolt, you got to tighten it down to 120. Alright, so I like to use a piece of wood to hold the prop while I'm tightening it down prior to doing the 120 foot-pounds of tightening. So make sure everything's nice and snug before I do that. Alright, so I don't know the name of this, but it's the cap that you put over the bolt. And lastly, we want to put the cotter pin in. Brand new cotter pin. Anytime you replace these, it's best practice to replace the cotter pin. Okay. And we'll just bend it out. And then we're done, guys. That's it. I'm going to bend it out. Alright, so it's Saturday on this chilly day. I've got my gloves on. We're going to replace the fuel water separator. Now, you're supposed to replace it every 100 hours, but I know that I've been out on quite a few trips where that's well exceeded 100 hours because our outings are typically every time we go out, it's about a 12-hour day, and I know we've gone out at least 15, 16 times, so we're way over the threshold. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that now. We'll rule that out as well. May not be the issue, but like I said, we're going to go ahead and do all of these maintenance things that I should have been doing. So yeah, every 100 hours you're supposed to replace this, and then every so often you have to check that drip to see if there's anything that you need to empty. But because we're in a cycle where we're going to replace it anyway, I'm not going to do any checks. I'm just going to remove it, replace it, call it a day, and we'll be good from that front. So okay, then we're going to replace the fuel filter, inline fuel filter. I'm replacing any possible filters at this moment. All right, well, we're safely off the water, and I think we have determined what the cause is for the 10 miles an hour. The bilge pump stopped working, and we were taking on a bunch of water, mostly because I have my cooler, and the cooler, once I start running that bilge pump pumps a lot of water, and then it also spills over into the transom. So we have an issue with the bilge pump for sure. We determined that because it happened towards the end of the day twice, even with the new prop. So it's not a prop. It's not anything except for too much water, too much weight. So I have to take care of that. I'm going to install 2 bilge pumps to take care of this problem, and that should remedy our situation. So I think we've solved it finally. Yep. All right, hang on. I want to show my subscribers what the issue is. All right, guys, problem solved. Look at all that water. That was the culprit right there. We were taking on at least 200 to 800 pounds of water. That's a lot. That's a big range, but it's a lot of water. Ain't that right? A lot of water. Holy smokes. That was causing us to only go 10 miles an hour because we were just carrying so much weight. All right.